Today on Public Eye News, COVID-19 protests threaten border trade between Canada and the U.S., and a New Zealand convoy clogs streets near Parliament to protest vaccine mandates.
Later, I will have your weather, and Michael Cudahy will be back with your sports update. Hi, I'm Susanna Gwynn.
And I'm Madeline Plattenberg, and this is Public Eye News. Canadian lawmakers are worried after the border between the U.S. and Canada was partially blocked by truckers protesting COVID-19 restrictions and vaccine mandates Tuesday. The blocked traffic at Ambassador Bridge prevented drivers from entering Canada, while some drivers entering the U.S. were still moving. In an emergency debate, Parliament Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the protesters are trying to blockade our economy, our democracy. Authorities reported a 3-hour-long delay with the trip across the border taking 5 hours longer than normal. According to Flavio Volpe, the protests threaten supplies of fresh produce, livestock, and other food. The group called Freedom Truck Convoy refuses to leave until vaccine mandates and COVID restrictions are lifted. And today, Governor Whitmer made her budget recommendation. Her recommendation totals $74 billion, with the general fund being $14.3 billion and $18.4 billion meant for school aid. The recommendation does not use any time available money for the long-term projects. Those projects could have been put in jeopardy if the one-time use money was available for long-term projects. The plan also does account for the tax cuts the Governor Whitmer is proposing, those being rolling back the retirement tax and increasing the amount Michiganders can use for the Earned Income Tax Credit. This morning, Interim President Carrie Schuling announced that Northern is changing pandemic protocols effective immediately. Individuals can remove their masks during physical activity periods, and NMU's Rec Sports Center and training areas, including club and intramural practices and competitions during performance periods for dance, music, and theater, and in shared office or workspaces. Pending that all parties agree, individuals must remask when visitors, clients, or colleagues enter the space. Masks still must be worn at all times inside an NMU facility. Departments can now resume holding in-person meetings and events, and student organizations can resume holding indoor and in-person events as long as the event site is large enough for social distancing.
And the NMU Queers and Allies is proud to present the 25th Annual Drag Show. All ages are welcome to a show featuring some of the most popular names in drag, including Sasha Love and Lila Starr. After the performance, stick around for the meet and greet and to take pictures. The event takes place on Saturday, February 12th at the Vandermont Arena. The show begins at 7, with doors opening for the audience at 6 p.m. Masks are required for all, and social distancing protocols do remain. And in Minnesota, lawmakers said Tuesday that they will be seeking to purposefully limit the use of the no-knock warrants following the death of Amir Locke, a 22-year-old black man who was shot and killed when the Minneapolis SWAT team entered an apartment to serve a search warrant. Locke's family and members of the Democratic House leadership announced that the bill would confine the use of no-knock warrants to only a few heinous crimes, like kidnapping, false imprisonment, and human trafficking. This new bill would extend beyond measures passed last year by the legislature in an event to hold police accountable. This bill would mean that all no-knock warrants would have to be approved by a chief law enforcement officer and an additional supervisor. They would have to detail whether the warrant was to take place in daytime or nighttime and explain why the perpetrator could not be obtained by the police through any other means. Poultry producers in Minnesota are tracking cases of bird flu found in wild birds in parts of the United States and Canada. A state veterinarian says that this is an early warning sign for poultry producers ahead of the winter foal migration in spring. According to the state agriculture department, Minnesota has approximately 550 commercial turkey operations and more than 3,000 poultry farms. Recent cases, although few, bring back memories of the 2015 avian flu or bird flu outbreak that affected more than 9 million birds in Minnesota and up to 50 million birds across the country that were either killed by the virus or euthanized in an effort to reduce the spread of disease. After this break, we will be back with your national and international news. Don't touch that dial.
Nova goes where few dare.
Just imagine the size of the bum that this dropped out of.
Finding facts in feces, data in dung.
It's taking a poo.
From blue whales
I was in a floating pile of whale poop.
to preventing poaching and poo cubes.
How would a square come out of a round hole?
A rare science adventure.
This is where the science happens.
Secrets in the Scat on Nova.
Tonight at 9 and tomorrow at 3 p.m.
Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff was evacuated from an event at Dunbar High School in Washington, D.C. After a bomb threat, Emhoff was visiting for Black History Month when he was taken out of the room by a U.S. Secret Service agent. 15 minutes later, students and staff were asked to immediately evacuate the building. Enrique Tierra's spokesperson for D.C. Public Schools confirmed the building was safe. And a space is falling from the sky. Well, SpaceX satellites, that is up to 40 of the 49 small satellites that were launched just last week, have either burned up on the re-entry into atmosphere, are on the verge of doing so after being hit by a solar storm. SpaceX says that a geomagnetic storm made the atmosphere more dense, increasing the drag on the satellites, essentially dooming them. SpaceX still has 2,000 satellites orbiting the Earth, and the falling satellites pose no threat. Weighing public exasperation and declining COVID cases, more governors are dropping mask mandates. The latest being New York. Other states are also planning off-ramps from COVID restrictions, but CDC guidance has not changed, especially on masking in schools. CBS's Bradley Blackburn reports from New York.
New York is the latest state to end mask mandates for most indoor public places.
Given the declining cases, given declining hospitalizations, that is why we feel comfortable to lift this in effect tomorrow.
Governors across the country are expressing a desire for a more normal way of life. Dropping the most visible public health measure comes as average COVID case numbers are down 69% from a peak of more than 800,000 on January 15th. But the CDC says other metrics are still too high.
Our hospitalizations are still high. Our death rates are still high. So as we work towards that and as we are encouraged by the current trends, we are not there yet.
The CDC continues to recommend universal masking in schools regardless of vaccination status.
School mask mandates will expire soon in New Jersey and Connecticut, despite the CDC guidance. In many areas of the country, it's up to local school authorities.
For Indiana, it's definitely too soon. It's great that our numbers are coming down, but we're basically looking at where we were at the beginning of December, and that's still really high.
Another reminder the pandemic's not over. The youngest Americans aren't yet eligible to be vaccinated. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
And in New Zealand, hundreds of people drove a convoy into the capital city of Wellington on Tuesday to converge outside Parliament in order to protest continued mask and vaccine mandates. Although maskless protesters had driven from all around the country, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern elected not to meet with them. Instead, she spoke with lawmakers outlining her priorities for the year. The priorities of her office include to protect lives and livelihoods throughout the pandemic. Despite the fact that New Zealand has escaped relatively unscathed throughout the pandemic, with just 53 deaths out of the 5 million infections, protesters are upset that certain essential workers are required to get the vaccine, along with continued mask mandates. Police said on Tuesday that so far no arrests have been made. And recent drone footage has captured the enormous scale of destruction in Colombia after a massive mudslide has buried homes and injured and killed dozens of residents. The tragedy took place in the western city of Risaralda, a municipality of Pereira, following torrential rains in the surrounding coffee bean growing province. Officials have also evacuated dozens of surrounding homes on the Otun River as it has overflowed. More Russian military movement in the direction of Ukraine. CBS News' Laura Podesta tells us how Russian President Putin is saying he wants peace, but his actions speak louder than his words.
6 Russian ships are traveling from the Mediterranean to the Black Sea, where they will take part in military exercises, according to Russia's foreign ministry. The military move, which Moscow insists was pre-planned, comes as Russia says it's working toward peace with Ukraine.
I would just say we're encouraged by any efforts at diplomacy. We still don't have any prediction of what President Putin will do.
Among those spearheading that diplomacy, French President Emmanuel Macron, who yesterday spoke with Ukraine's president a day after Macron had met with President Putin. Macron says Putin told him that Moscow would not further escalate the Ukraine crisis. The Kremlin, though, is denying reports that Putin and Macron had struck a deal.
It is in some ways really difficult to predict what Putin has in mind, except when you amass over 100,000 troops, I don't know how he's supposed to walk that back, because the man is a thug and a huge egomaniac.
Macron also said advisors from France, Germany, Russia, and Ukraine will meet tomorrow in Berlin to discuss the next steps toward a political resolution. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
After this break, we will be back with weather and sports.
Hello, I'm Michael Landra, and in this week's Ireland with Michael, we're in my father's birthplace, the beautiful medieval city of Kilkenny. Now, this town is full of rich history, home to some talented musicians, and proud as can be of their hurling heritage. So join me as we explore all that Kilkenny has to offer.
Thursday night at 5.
Welcome back. My name is Susanna Gwynn, and I have your weather. Let's take a look at our beautiful academic mall behind us. The sun is nowhere in sight, and there's still quite a bit of snow on the ground. Let's get into current conditions. Currently, it is cloudy, a temperature of 29 degrees, winds out of the west-northwest at 15 miles per hour, and a pressure of 29.49 and rising. Overnight tonight, snow showers are possible in the early morning hours with a low of 17 and winds out of the northwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Into tomorrow, cloud cover will continue with a high of 24 and winds out of the west at 12 miles per hour. Let's take a look around the entirety of the UP. It is cold and snowy for everyone. In Sault Ste. Marie, it is 33 and snowy, and in Escanaba, it is 37 and snowy as well. Let's take a look at the western half. It is 25 in Ironwood and snowy. Our friends to the north in Houghton are 29 and snowy, and beautiful Marquette is 29 and cloudy. Let's get into conditions for tomorrow. Looking ahead, Friday, we have a high of 29 with snow and a low of 1. Saturday, the chill will continue, a high of 7, clouds, a low of 0. And Sunday, a high of 14, clouds, and a low of 4. Now tossing it back to Michael in sports.
And wow, what a hockey game last night. Michigan Tech came out of the gates last night in the Barrie Event Center and just never took their foot off the gas as they practically coasted to an 8-1 victory. Brian Hallinan scored 40 seconds into the game for Tech, and again with 3 minutes left in the first, sandwiching his goals around that of Ashbrook and Gotts to make it just 4-0 at the end of just one period. Nolan Kent is the first goalie to have 8 losses in the Northern Tech rivalry, but due to all the injuries suffered by the Cats, fans saw a new backup goalie in Braden Golisic, a local Marquette kid who most recently played intramural hockey here in Marquette for TrueMove Elite. And anyone that's been on Google this morning, you may have noticed that they're paying tribute to one of the first women to ever play the game of baseball professionally, Toni Stone. Last year, she was inducted into her local papers, the Star Tribune's Minnesota Sports Hall of Fame. And in 1993, she was inducted into the Women's Sports Hall of Fame and the International Women's Sports Hall of Fame. Born in Bluefield, West Virginia, and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota, she went to play in the NAL in 1953 for the Indianapolis Clowns as a replacement for Hank Aaron, and then for the Kansas City Monarchs the next season. And today, Red Bull Racing unveiled their new car for the coming season. The car looks eerily similar to that of the model car given to teams to present the new technical regulations for the coming season. The 4-time double world championship outfit, its team principal, Christian Horner, alluded that the car may look very different by the time we get to the first Grand Prix of the season. This will be the first car that Red Bull will be making without an outside engine manufacturer, as they left Renault in 2018 for Honda, and this past season was Honda's last year in the sport, despite winning the Drivers' Championship with Max Verstappen. Though the current engine was made by Honda, it will be branded under Red Bull's new powertrains division. And that's all the time we have for you today. Thank you for tuning in to Public Eye News. I'm Michael Cudahy.
And I'm Susanna Gwynn. Thank you, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
The preceding program was produced by WNMU-TV, Northern Michigan University Public Television, in studios located in Elizabeth and Edgar Hardin Hall.